Hello, everyone. This is James McDaniels, and you are listening to another week's edition of the NBA and NASCAR Power Half Hour. I am your host, and we've got another great show on tap for you guys today. I'm sorry about last week, you guys. The Memorial Day weekend kind of rattled things up a little bit. The NASCAR Sprint Cup race was changed to Sunday, and then I was busy, so there were just several factors into last weekend's 3-day weekend with Memorial Day, kind of screwed things over a little bit, so that's why I did not have a show last week. I'm sorry, you guys, but I'm back this week, full and ready to continue doing the show on a weekly basis as much as I can. So we've got a lot to talk about in the world of sports this week. Not a lot so much of NASCAR, as of course it only happens like once every week. But we've got a lot of NBA news regarding a lot of different things. I mean, we've got the playoffs, obviously, but we have a lot of other things that weren't associated with the playoffs per se that occurred this week, including a player retirement. You've probably heard it, Grant Hill, the Grant Hill that we've all known from the Magic and the Pistons and the Suns. He has officially announced his retirement after all of his years of playing, so we'll go over some of his stats and stuff that he accomplished over the time and span of his career. We'll go over, there's been a fine handed out from the NBA to one of the playoff team players from the Indiana Pacers. Hibbert has been fined $75,000, and we'll talk about the reason he got fined that much money. Let's see. We're going to talk about now that we've got the Sacramento Kings staying in Sacramento. They've had the Long Live the Kings rally. It's time to start cleaning house, I guess you could say, with the NBA office, or the Sacramento Kings office. So we'll tell you who the Sacramento Kings have now selected as the new head coach to replace Keith Smart. We've also got another guy from Memphis. For crying out loud, I mean, the head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies is actually starting to look other places for jobs when, you know, he just took the Grizzlies to the best season they've had, I think, in the entire span that the franchise has been in the NBA. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then to NASCAR, we'll talk about the Dover race today, the exciting finish that we saw, a late penalty on the race leader, so we'll talk about that one because it was pretty controversial. And then finally, we'll talk about what happened last week. There was a camera that was over Charlotte Speedway, and the cables to it snapped or something and came down, injured a few fans. So we'll talk a little bit about that and what NASCAR is doing about it. So we got a pretty full lineup, and of course, the show's only half an hour, so we don't got a lot of time to screw around. We just got to get right to it. So, I want to start off actually by going to Grant Hill's retirement. So, Grant Hill is, you know, he's been in the league for so many years. He's a veteran. He's played for a few different teams. Like I say, he played for the Pistons. He played for the Magic, the Suns, and then he finished up this season with the Clippers. There's only one time I can see on here that Grant Hill actually started all 82 games of a season. And that was when that was back in 08 and 09 when he was with the Phoenix Suns. So, for those who really don't follow Grant Hill's been he was an all-star really back in the day. He was an all-star, and he did put up some nice averages through the majority of his career. At the end of this career now that he's officially announced his retirement, his career totals now have ended up at an average of about 16.7 points a game, so that really isn't that bad. And then the assists and the rebounds column, yeah, he averages out with 4.1 assists and 6 rebounds a game to finish off his career. So this guy, Grant Hill, he's, like I said, he's been in the league a very long time, so he's had a lot of experience. Obviously, he's played a lot of games. He scored a lot of points back in his prime days. I'm trying to see here basically which of his stats was like one of the best years for him. He averaged about 20 points a game in his first 2 seasons. And then really after that, he went 21 points, 21 points, 21 points, 25, all in the course of when he played for Detroit. His career seemed to go downhill a little bit in terms of points only after he left Detroit and went to Orlando. And then, of course, he played in Orlando and then Phoenix for a number of years with both of those teams. But he seemed to have the best years of his career in the early going when he was with the Pistons in terms of scoring. He did pretty well with assists and rebounds both ways. So he kind of really did have a very good career with the Detroit Pistons. It kind of went downhill with Orlando and Phoenix, but he did pretty much all right, I guess, throughout his entire career. I mean, you can't say he was a pretty bad player because he really wasn't. He was pretty good. In terms of double-doubles, triple-doubles, in his entire career, he's had 29 triple-doubles, 180 double-doubles, and he's only been ejected one time. One time has he ever been ejected in a game, although he does have 39 technicals. So let's see. That was that for him in terms of kind of the, big things. It's like if you rate a player on double-doubles or triple-doubles, that's how many he had during the course of his career. So, let's see here. We've got, that pretty much describes Grant Hill in terms of the statistical point of him. In terms of his average field goal percentage, he actually finished up pretty nicely, very high, about 0.483. So that's about 48.3% on his career from the field, and that's actually pretty good. That's really good from that spot on the floor. He finished with just under a 77% free throw percentage, so that's all right too. So I mean, he really actually did have a pretty good overall career. I think it just went downhill a little bit once he got to Orlando. His career just got less and less and less and less as he went on through his career. But he had a really good time with Detroit, and then he started going down the points when he was with Orlando, and then he went down even more points when he was at Phoenix. But he was still scoring an average of more than 10 points a game in every single season that he played, except for the final season, which was with the LA Clippers. So let's see what we can remember out of all those stats. Like, where does this put him in history compared to some of the others? So Grant Hill is only one of 17 players in NBA history to score over 17,000 points, 6,000 rebounds, and 4,000 assists. Okay, so there's only 17 guys, including him, that have ever accomplished that feat. So that already puts him in a stature that's already pretty high up the ladder. So of the 12 people that are eligible for the Hall of Fame, all 12 of them are enshrined. And then the other active players, who are still playing, of course, i.e. they're active, like I just said, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Jason Kidd. So that's already a pretty elite group that he's at. He's also, like I said, he was very, very good in the beginning of his career, all right? Like I said, he had very good stats and pretty much everything. In the first 6 seasons, Hill averaged 21.6 points, just under 8 rebounds, and just over 6 assists a game. And that's actually pretty good because he is the only player besides Oscar Robertson in the entire course of NBA history to average as many points, rebounds, and assists in the first 6 seasons. All right, LeBron James didn't do that. Michael Jordan never did it. Larry Bird never did it. Jerry West never did it. I don't even think Tyreek Evans will probably ever do it. I mean, this guy, he's in a realm that's even higher than LeBron James and Michael Jordan in this one category for averaging, averaging that good of stats for 6 seasons straight. And like I said, those were all pretty much with the Pistons. So, you got to give him some credit on that. And then there's only 5 other guys that have actually averaged 20 points per game, 5 assists per game, and 5 rebounds per game in their first 6 seasons. But again, only him and Oscar Robertson are the only players in NBA history to average as many as 21.6 points, 7.9 rebounds, and 6.3 assists in their first 6 seasons. So, technically, Grant Hill actually could, and the fact that he's also been an all-star, and he was pretty good back in the day, he was a pretty good overall NBA player. I mean, he wasn't best in like anything, but But, he's probably a good example of what a good NBA player is. He's just good all around, and he's really going to be missed. The NBA is really going to miss Grant Hill with all of his longevity and how much stats he put up. So it's kind of sad to see him gone, but hey, everybody's got to retire at some point. So he felt like it was this time, and if it's really his time to leave the NBA, then I fully respect that decision, and I hope he has a good retirement. He definitely has enough to live off of it because of all the pay he's gotten from all the years in the NBA. But I'm pretty sure he'll enjoy the retirement, and I have no doubt that he'll stay close to the NBA. He'll still watch the NBA. He might go to NBA games and such. But yeah, have him enjoy his retirement. He's did his time in the NBA, and now it's time for him to move on. So Grant Hill retiring after so many seasons, and now we say goodbye to one of the what was still a legend, basically, in terms of how long he's been playing that many seasons. So let's move on from retirement to a fine. Like I said, Roy Herbert was the guy that received this fine. He's on the Indiana Pacers. He's played a pretty big role in this series between the Heat and the Pacers, which I will get to in a minute. But Roy Herbert fined $75,000 for using a gay slur in one answer and profanity in another answer during a press conference following Game 6. All right, so here's basically the two comments that got him that fine from the NBA. One of the responses that he had was using the gay slur, and that came during a response to a question about his defense on LeBron James, and he ended it basically by saying no homo, and then later in the press conference, or should I say also during the press conference, he also used profanity, like I said, and then here's where the exact words on that quote, without, of course, using the profanity language on here. Y'all bleep don't watch us play throughout the year to tell the truth. So that's fine. I'm going to be real with you, and I don't care if I get fined. We play, and we're not on TV all the time, and reporters are the ones that are voting, and it is what it is. And I don't make it, that's fine, but I'm still going to do what I have to do. And this was all in response to a question that about why he finished so low in the Defensive Player of the Year award, which of course was won by Marc Gasol of the Grizzlies this year. So Hibbert, at least he did the right thing. He apologized, made a public apology about it, but he still got fined by the NBA. As to ask why David Stern pushed the fine even after the sincere apology, which is what he used to say what it is. He still said that if you make a mistake is that big, like profanity or anything like that, when you're on TV and you're representing this organization and stuff like that, you just can't go out there and say those. You can't just go out there and say any type of profanity because it looks bad on the NBA and it doesn't work really well with the NBA. That ain't gonna work well with the NBA. The NBA is like, you can't make us look bad like that. You got to you have to go and it's just so easy to explain. It's like, why do they even use language on TV like that? I mean, I wouldn't be that stupid to go out there and use language that bad on TV, but I guess he was just full of it. But this was the official this is the official apology anyway that Herbert said in a statement that was released by the Pacers. He said, quote, "I'm apologizing for insensitive remarks made during the post-game press conference after our victory over the Miami Heat Saturday night. They were disrespectful and offensive and not a reflection of my personal views. I use slang term that is not appropriate in any setting, public or private or public, I should say, and the language I use definitely has no place in a public forum, especially over live television. I apologize to those who I have offended, to our fans, and to the Pacers organization." So that pretty much describes, how people can, feel that they've done wrong and they got to apologize. So I think Roy Herbert did the right thing. And like I said, the NBA Commissioner David Stern did, say that, we're glad that he apologized, but he also had to put a file on him. So I've actually found the quote that I was trying to look for about a minute or two ago when I couldn't really find it. But here's it is now. This is what David Stern said about it. He said, quote, "While Roy has issued an apology, which is no doubt sincere, a fine is necessary to reinforce that such offensive comments will not be tolerated by the NBA." So that pretty much tells you right there, you never use profanity language on such a national stage like that. And I think Roy Herbert did the right thing by apologizing, but he's really got to learn that you can't do that in front of the press. I mean, it's free press and stuff, but it just doesn't look good to you or to the NBA, or maybe even to the reporter possibly who asked the question that started it. If you use foul language like that. So I'm glad Roy Herbert did what he did. I'm glad he can just move on now with this small fine by the NBA and move on and learn a tough lesson the hard way, basically, and just don't ever use foul language in the press. That's a thing that all of us sports broadcasters know about, and I think players should learn how to do it too. So let's move on from fines to new coaches. Mike Malone in Sacramento now. He's going to be the new Sacramento Kings head coach. It is expected that Monday, that on Monday they will officially announce Mike Malone to be the new Sacramento Kings head coach, and like I said, he will be replacing Keith Smart for the head coaching spot there in Sacramento. Now, of course, the Kings have just saved their Kings, and now they're going through a whole, like I said, they're going to clean office basically. And the first thing that Vivek Ranadive did was to replace Keith Smart as the coach and get Mike Malone. Now, there is kind of a connection with Mike Malone, so I can kind of understand the connection there with Ranadive to wanting him. Ranadive actually worked with Malone with the Warriors, so he knows him well, and they kind of know how the Warriors, got back up into being really good. So I expect probably within another 2 years or so, or sooner, the Kings can start, now that all this relocation stuff's all over with, they can finally start rebuilding and really start, becoming the next Warriors and starting to, get back to where they were when they were back to the greatest show on the court about 10 years ago. I mean, it'd be really great if they could do that, and I know Vivek's the right person to do it. And because he can work with Mike Malone, since he's worked with him in the past, we know that there's not going to be any fighting or arguments going on really there. So the Kings announced that they were going to do this today, but however, they will not actually do it officially until a news conference that's going to be scheduled for tomorrow. Now, anybody who doesn't know Mike Malone's actually the son of a former NBA coach named Brendan Malone, and has been an assistant in the league for more than a decade. Now he finally gets to be a head coach, and he's now the head coach of the Sacramento Kings. So a whole new thing that's starting there. We're going to be getting a new basketball operations, or president of basketball operations around there now that Geoff Petrie says he's going to leave. So we'll see who they're going to pick there. The first thing they had to get rid of was either the GM or the coach, and now they'll go for the GM, obviously, since they picked the coach first. And then after that, then it'll be very big to see what they decide on whether to keep DeMarcus Cousins or put up a big offer for Tyreke Evans. As who knows what will happen? Who knows where Tyreke or DeMarcus Cousins will be playing at the start of next season? That's still up in the air, and it's a big decision for both Vivek Ranadive and the new coach of Mike Malone. So that's the story in Sacramento. Mike Malone has officially been announced as the new head coach of the Sacramento Kings, being replaced by head coach Keith Smart. So let's get on to the Memphis Grizzlies coaching situation now. Lionel Hollins was the Grizzlies head coach, and of course the Grizzlies had the best season, I think it's franchise history actually, this year, but surprisingly the Grizzlies are actually giving Lionel Hollins permission to seek other teams. And the reason why is because the initial talks to renew a contract and keep him with the team long term kind of went downhill. In fact, it was described as, quote, major philosophical differences, end quote. That is really interesting. Philosophical differences. Interesting. Okay. So that pretty much tells you right there, if you can't get along with somebody mentally, then no matter how good you put a product on the floor, you may not be able to go to the organization. Now, there are players that, do believe that he should stay. Now, this kind of came all up a little bit because Hollins didn't really like the decision that was made involving Rudy Gay. When Rudy Gay was traded, remember that big trade to Toronto that happened in mid-season? Hollins did not really like that. In fact, he was pretty angry regarding the trade, and I would not be surprised why. I was really angry about it too, but it changed the Grizzlies for the good and got him to the Western Conference Finals this year before being swept by the Spurs. But there were still players that want him there. Even Mike Conley expressed, that he wanted him to stay. He said, quote, "I know that he's fought for me in every situation that he's had to. I can't even put enough words into the sentence to say how much it means to me. Now I'm trying to go to bat for him, try and keep him here," end quote. And then the Grizzlies management, or no, not Grizzlies management, Hollins himself has put this quote in during the second round of the playoffs. This is what Hollins told ESPN. Quote, "The only conversations we've had in terms of talking with the Grizzlies management is they said they wanted me back after we lost the first two games to the Clippers. We had a friendly conversation about the series, about how they just wanted me personally to know that regardless of what's being said out there, this is how they felt. That was great," end quote. So, I don't think there's, no chance of him staying there, but the fact that the Grizzlies can't even work out a deal with their new coach and stuff like that. I don't care how bad you get along mentally with the other guys in the clubhouse, but, seriously, it's like you got to let up. When this guy is taking this team, where you wanted this team to go, playoffs and even almost to the Western Conference championship, I don't know why you'd want to get rid of him. I understand you need to have relations with these people, like the owners. There's new owners now for the Grizzlies, Robert Pera and CEO Jason Livian. But I can understand them not liking the fact that they for some reason they can't get along. But I think at the same time you have to at least give him some kind of respect because he knows exactly what's going on. And he's taken this team to heights that probably any of you being coach probably couldn't do. So you know what? I say the Grizzlies, you know what? This guy took the team where he wanted it to go. He possibly could turn it into a championship team in the coming years. So I suggest you keep that coach, try to work out your mental problems behind the door, and then, get the Grizzlies to where they want the fans to be down in Memphis. Because when you have a coach that good, it's like taking Rick Allen from the Kings a few years back. It's like once Allen left, the whole team went downhill. The team made the playoffs. I think it was like 8 straight seasons or something with Allen behind the rim. I think every single time. And then once they got rid of him, boom! Every single season after that, Kings have never been in the playoffs ever. So with that in mind, that is what could happen to the Grizzlies, possibly. If Hollins leaves the Grizzlies. So that's just a warning to Grizzlies right there. And I hope that Hollins stays with Memphis and can work out these other issues that he has later. Because if Memphis wants a good team, Lionel Hollins seems like he's a good coach. He took him far. And I have no doubt that he'll take him even farther come the next few seasons. So like I said, let's get to the Miami Heat and Pacers series very quickly. Quick summary of it. Besides everything we've talked about, before I get to NASCAR and before I end the show. Of course, like I said, San Antonio absolutely swept the Grizzlies for nothing, so ain't too close on that series. But in terms of the Pacers Heat series, a lot thought that probably the Heat would probably finish this off before 6 games. We're going to a Game 7, people, and the Pacers are pretty much for real. So here's how the games are working out right now. Game 1, that was a very close game all the way. Pacers Heat coming down to the last second. LeBron James game-winning layup there. Heat win 103-102. Only game in overtime this series so far. Game 2, Pacers win it on the road against the Heat 97-93. Another close game, but this time they came out with the lead, and they would tie the series 1-1. Heat would beat the Pacers at home in Game 3. Or no, Heat would beat the Pacers, and the Pacers were at home in Game 3, and they beat them by a large margin, 18 points, 114-96. Game 4, Pacers tied it back up, using home court advantage, beating Heat 99-92. Game 5, Heat win at home over Pacers 90-79. Game 6, Pacers win Heat 91-77 to tie the series at 3. Game 7's tomorrow night on TNT, and game starts 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It should be very interesting. We know both of these teams can win on the road, and in this case, Indiana's going to have to win on the road to win this series. The Heat's won at home. Indiana's won there as well, so it's anybody's game. I mean, whoever has the better night, I think, is going to win this game pretty easily, because it seems like both teams have had their nights. The Heat have had only like one runaway victory. All the others have been like, within, a good 11 points or less. I mean, they've been pretty close pretty much the whole way. So, I mean, this series is very tight, and I actually had the Pacers winning the Heat in about 6 or 7 games. So, I think the Pacers seriously could put the Heat on Miami and cause them to go home, and I wouldn't be too surprised to see a Pacers Spurs series in the NBA Finals, and it would be very nice to see the Pacers finally win an NBA championship, because all 3 of their championships have come in the ABA. So, it'd be nice to see them win an actual NBA championship. So that is basically the first 6 games in a nutshell. And so that does it for the NBA. So let's get on to NASCAR. I've got about 4 minutes left. That's enough to talk about this kind of stuff. So today, the Dover race. Dover, the Monster Mile, is what its name is. Definitely a good name for it, because it definitely can be a monster to you. As it proved today, Denny Hamlin got up in the wall today due to a tire going down. Matt Kenseth, he blew an engine today, ruined his day. So those were 2 of the big names that really lost in today's race. But probably the biggest thing was Jeff Gordon and Kurt Busch. They were racing pretty well. Kurt Busch came down, made his pit stop. Jeff Gordon was about to go down pit road, probably within the next lap or 2, with about 24 left to go, and the caution came out for Denny Hamlin's wreck, and that really changed things all over the place, because Jeff Gordon was staying out, and he had stayed in the top 5, so he was playing a really big gamble, because everybody else could barely make it on fuel, and when that caution came out, worked for him perfectly, was up there in the top 5. So nice thing for my driver, Jeff Gordon, he would go on to finish 3rd in the race. Now, as for the finish, the restart, the very last restart of this race was where everything went down, basically. Now, this is the FedEx 400 benefiting Autism Speaks. I really like this race, because considering that I personally do have autism, it means a lot that NASCAR does support autism as it does, because it really is a very good cause. But anyway, the last restart was where everything really happened. Jimmy Johnson had a very, very fast car all race. He did not come out of the pits first when he was when he came out of the pits for the final time. Montoya actually got out there first, so he was the one that was leading the race. Okay, so Montoya chose the high side, and on the restart, Montoya for some reason couldn't get going. It might just be he spun his tires or something. But anyway, Johnson basically took off and beat Montoya to the line by a very good margin. And NASCAR, within a few laps, black flagged him. Johnson had to come down for pit road penalty, and that would ruin his day. And instead of finishing first like he probably should have, he finished 17th. Now, this black flag was thrown because they said he got like basically an equal start, unfair start. But Johnson argues that he was in the little box that you see on the side of every NASCAR track, where you can basically start on a restart anywhere within that box. So Johnson said that he started within that box and therefore shouldn't have got black flagged. Well, you have to remember that the other rule in NASCAR is not only can you not start until you reach that box, But if you're not the leader, then you cannot reach the start-finish line until the first place guy gets there. In this case, it was Montoya. So Montoya did not cross the line first. Jimmy Johnson did. Everybody else stayed back. So because of that, even though Johnson started fairly, he was black flagged because he did not follow that rule. And Johnson even argued he tried to give it back, but if you would have seriously tried to give it back, you would have hit on the brake and slowed everybody down to let Montoya pass you, But Montoya just couldn't get going, and it would work out bad for Johnson. Now, Juan Pablo Montoya, I don't think he's ever actually won on an oval track. He's been so close so many times, but he's never actually won on one. He's only won at the road courses. So he was actually chased down in the final laps by Tony Stewart, and I think it was like with 3 or 2 laps to go that Tony Stewart, who had been gaining on Montoya the whole time, finally passed him on the high side because Montoya wouldn't let him go, and he was able to make the pass, drive away, and win the race. So Smoke, as we all call him, Tony Stewart, able to make a come-from-behind improbable win to win the Autism Speaks race at Dover. So he gave a nice burnout, definitely deserves so, because he had such a comeback win. Montoya finished second again in an oval race. He's still trying to look for that first win. And Jeff Gordon recapping with a nice weekend, finishing a nice third place after taking that what could have been a very costly gamble with about about 100 laps left to go. So that's pretty much the Dover race. And also, while I'm on the Dover race, I might as well tell you guys that Brad Keselowski did not pass his inspection, his post-race inspection, I believe it was. Let me check here. But yeah, Keselowski did not. He actually failed the height stick test in post-race inspection. Too low on the front, and penalties are expected for Brad Keselowski's. Basically, yeah, Brad Keselowski. So one last thing I want to tell you guys about. Like I said, there was that camera that went down during the Coca-Cola 600 last week. It injured, I guess you could say injured or damaged a few NASCARs in the process. It injured a few fans. So it was pretty bad. It caused about a half an hour delay trying to get that thing fixed. They still are trying to really figure out what the cause was of it. But the camera now is, I believe the camera is actually not in use right now. They're not going to use it, I guess, until they've really figured out what's been going on with it. But anyway, whether that's true or not, I'm not 100% sure. But the drivers were pretty happy with what NASCAR did with it. I mean, they just set a new precedent, in my opinion, which I think is the correct thing to do, which is what Jeff Gordon said. And he was not. Now, Jeff Gordon, his team was not allowed to work on his car back in 2004 when a piece of track came up and put a hole in his car at Martinsville. But I think they actually let the cars try to repair damage. I think it was. I'm not 100% sure here on some of this, but I do know that there was the incident with the camera. There were fans that were injured, and some of them were even taken to local hospitals for observations. But a Fox Sports executive did apologize for the events that took place with the camera and the delay from last week. They're still trying to investigate what caused the cable to break and fall. But they're still trying. They're still trying to figure out the situation. So that is pretty much it, you guys. We have went through pretty much everything I said I was going to talk about, and the show is a little bit over its time. So yeah, guys, this has been this week's edition of the NBA and NASCAR Power Half Hour. Big week coming up. NBA Finals are going to start after, of course, we have Game 7 tomorrow. Eastern Conference Pacers Heat. Who will win? Who will come up on top? Who knows? NHL playoffs are going to be going on, so I might have an update on those as they get closer to the climax of the season. And, of course, any NASCAR news, if Brad Keselowski gets any penalties, I'll tell you what those are next week. And then any other NBA or NASCAR news that comes up during the week, I shall bring to you guys. So until I talk to you guys next week, I hope you have a good one, and good night, everybody.